Welcome to another exciting episode of the Insurance Untangled Podcast. I'm Narain Arulraja, one of the co-hosts of this podcast. We are dedicated to helping practices that are tangled up with insurance get untangled. That's why we are called InsuranceUntangled.com. We talk about topics that help you take more control and create a bigger and better future for you, your patients, and of course, your team members. Today, my guest is my dear friend, Ben Chuene. Ben, I'm really excited about the topic we're going to be discussing today. Is PPO fee negotiations getting stronger or easier for dentists now that more dentists are dropping PPO plans? This is a wonderful conversation that I'm looking forward to having. Ben, how are you doing today?
Hey, Naren, great to chat with you. Doing very well, my friend. It's an interesting topic here that we're going to be chatting about.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. I know we live in a crazy time. The economy, the inflation, the interest rate, now possibly another war that's happening in the Middle East. So it's just, we are living in this crazy time. But anyways, life still has to go on. And, you know, as practice owners, one of the things that is in the minds of many of our listeners is, you know, the PPO write-offs, like how much they have to give up in the form of a write-off every time they treat a patient who's on PPOs. And the problem with that is now they have to cut the quality of their work. They have to see more patients, with the same time, because otherwise they can't make the math work. They can't make a profit. They can't, pay the bills. So, so one of the things you do is to help deal with that. And especially, of course, Gary helps people drop insurance, but you help companies, doctors negotiate if and when they can negotiate. So you have tons of knowledge. You've been doing this for a long time, Ben. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, with all the volatility going on, with the plague the pandemic 3 years ago, and that having an impact on inflation. I think in my career, I've never seen so much change happen all at once, as it pertains to just being in the dental industry itself. But, fees and what people get paid. There are some positive changes that we're looking forward to in terms of seeing how a lot of those changes are going to benefit the dental industry as a whole.
Yeah, let's have some fun with this topic. You have been, how long have you been in this industry, Ben? Like, I mean, in negotiating fees and so forth?
So I started in 2007. So that's what, a little shy under not 20,
Right.
not full 20 years, but almost there.
So 16 years, if I were to be
16 years.
precise.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the trends over those 16 years when it comes to fee negotiations?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I started in dentistry, I actually took a look back into history just to take a look at fee trends and what changes triggered fee schedule changes in dentistry. And interestingly, when I started in dentistry is when a lot of insurance carriers really started to change or at least implemented changes in their policies to make negotiations difficult or impossible. Because back then, nobody knew, in dentistry, that is, none of the dentists that I worked with, none of them knew that you can negotiate your fees with insurance companies. And so, that's just proof that the insurance industry knew what it was doing as it developed dental insurance. Is they had a very strong grip on the dentist by making dentists believe that they couldn't negotiate. So since I've been in dentistry, that has changed significantly, where you have companies like Henry Schein buying a PPO fee negotiating firm. Benco just announced, I think it was last week, that they bought a PPO fee negotiating firm because these big companies see the writing on the wall, right? There's some revenue to be captured with a service that is helpful to dentists, but also one that's becoming a service that's becoming more and more popular these days. So in essence, what we're finding, Naren, is that the fact that more people, more doctors and more companies out there are negotiating, it is getting easier on the dentist to obtain fee increases on a regular basis now, more so it's ever been in the history of dentistry.
Right. So is that because a lot of doctors are dropping PPO plans? Is that what's causing it?
Oh yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. Statistically, when you look at the dental plans that have the largest enrollment of lives or people, it's the dental plans that have the largest number of enrolled doctors that typically would have the largest number of subscribers towards their dental plans. And the larger the insurance carrier is, where the larger their in-network participation is, the less likely they're going to negotiate. Well, you're starting to see that dynamic change among the big insurance carriers that are losing providers, is that many of those large insurance carriers are now negotiating in areas of the country that they used to not negotiate. So I think they're being forced in that position as a result of doctors leaving in-network status or going out of network.
So you kind of touched on, so you are seeing a lot of insurance companies changing their behavior. They're changing their approach, in how they deal with dentists, because these doctors are dropping PPO plans. And are they increasing the amount of money they pay dentists in general, or you have to ask for it?
Yeah, so the rate increases are negotiated. Insurance carriers have, for the most part, been extremely unwilling to raise fees automatically every year to adjust to inflation. That's really not happened in dentistry. When there are auto increases that the insurance companies offer without doctors negotiating, those increases aren't very meaningful. They're maybe 0.5% of a total impact on the practice, right? But you see some major insurance carriers now that are making they're saying we've updated our fees, where they raise fees for a bunch of procedures, but they lower fees for a bunch of procedures as well, right? So at the end of the day, when you do your math, you're making the exact same revenue despite getting a fee update from certain insurance carriers. But what's helping is the trend of doctors going out of network that seems to be forcing the insurance industry back to where we want them to be, right? Making things more flexible for the doctors and increasing fees more on a regular basis, and also being open to negotiations, whereas in the past they weren't, So fortunately for dentistry, the result of doctors going out of network has been very, very helpful to the industry as a whole.
Right. So do you see this happening every case, or maybe 40% of the insurance plans are willing to negotiate?
So right now, every dental plan is negotiable or engaging in some form of negotiations in certain parts of the country, right? Whereas if you were to ask that same question 5 years ago, approximately 80% of the dental plans were negotiating, right? And the 20%, the big ones, they just didn't care, right? And you still do see some of that happening. It's kind of funny because, when doctors call, and I can't, I need to stay away from naming insurance carriers, kind of give me a breather from all these cease and desist that I get from insurance carriers on a regular basis. But anyway, certain large PPO plans, when doctors would call them to say, what is your termination process? Those insurance plans, they know they're losing providers like crazy. And what they're telling doctors is, well, if you want to terminate, here's what it is. And, and the doctors say, why are you negotiating? The insurance companies say, no, we don't negotiate. So if you don't like the fees, you can just terminate, right? And it reminds me of companies like Kodak, Blockbuster, these massive organizations that were unwilling to change to adapt to the times, right? Kodak in particular, who ignored it was their engineers that were recommending that Kodak go digital, and the board laughed at that. It's like, well, no, and naturally what happened was digital companies came in and they ate up market share like crazy from Kodak and other companies like Kodak. So we're seeing that resistance to change by a lot of the big insurance carriers. They talk a big talk when it comes to you going out of network, as if they don't care. But the reality is that the movement that you're seeing on the back end, with them making fee changes and opening up doors for negotiations, speaks to how afraid the insurance industry is from losing more providers. So if you're thinking about going out of network, do it. It's helping. It's helping the industry as a whole when more and more doctors decide to go out of network.
Thank you for that. What's your prediction, Ben, when it comes to the future as it pertains to fee trends and so forth? Are things going to get better
Yeah.
or is it going to get worse?
Yeah, I do see a tug of war going on here. The example that I use, and that's a game of tug of war between the dentists and the insurance companies. The example I'll use is here in Utah. At one point in time, Utah had some of the lowest fee schedules. In fact, when I started taking on clients here in Utah, this was way back in 2009, the standard fee for a crown in almost any part of Utah was less than $900, mostly around $820, $850. And the fees for crowns, the in-network fees for crowns were in the $400 and $500 range way back in 2009. When you look at the fee changes, like today, if I were to get a crown here in Utah, it's gone up from $850 to roughly $1,200 now, right? But so has the in-network reimbursements. So we're no longer seeing any of the $400 crowns anymore. The $500 crowns are quickly disappearing from the market here in Utah. But the average of reimbursements these days, the fees, especially if you want to measure, the difference on a crown, is what doctors are getting today is between $850 and $950 for a crown, right? Which is basically the usual and customary fees for a standard crown 10 years ago, right? 12 years ago. I haven't seen that big of a shift and change in other states, in a lot of other states, right? So naturally, when you look at fees, the trends of fees, it's the activity of negotiating and raising your fees in basically any community in the US that sort of then dictates where the insurance fees will end up in the future, right? So we've done a great job here in Utah focusing on those efforts. I'd say Utah probably has the highest concentration of doctors that negotiate fees either on their own or using a company to do that. And that alone, in my opinion, has made a big difference in fees in our community in favor of the dentists. So that's the goal, is to get more to negotiate. And naturally that is happening. So what you're going to see over time, over the next 5-10 years, is that fee trends will continue to be on the rise. As insurance carriers fight to retain doctors under in-network status, as well as, as the pace of doctors continuing to go out of network, we'll have a nice balance of a fee trend in the upward direction over the next several years.
Right. And I think also something has fundamentally changed. Today, people are not picking dentists because of the dental plan. They are picking dentists because of the Google reviews, right? Because what they learn about that dentist online. So even when they go to a dentist within the plan, they're just going to Google first and finding the perfect dentist. And that's how they're going about it. So a lot of dentists are realizing the insurance plan is not doing anything for me. I mean, they don't help me with treatment. They don't do anything. They don't even drive the patient to me because the patients are not using the insurance website anymore. They're using Google to find patients. So I guess they're also getting more bullish and they're saying, I don't need you guys. Like I can get the patients from Google. So why do I need to pay you 40%, 30% every time I see one of your patients? So I think I think finally dentists are starting to get it and they're realizing that insurance doesn't have the power that they thought it had. Is that something you're also seeing, Ben?
Oh yeah. Like
when you're in a powerful position, you can negotiate, right? When you feel like you're weak, you cannot negotiate.
That's right. That's right. But you said something there that is a revelation to a lot of doctors, is that the insurance companies are not as strong as what we thought. They're not as all powerful as we thought, right? They're not the big bullies that we thought. Because one dental office can stand up against an insurance carrier and win if you know what you're doing, right? We experience
if you do excellent work and people find you on Google, you're going to be really busy. So you don't need the insurance
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that also, changes the dynamics of where the benefit dollars are coming from, because, as more and more doctors go out of network and more health insurance carriers are including dental benefits, or at least dental coverage on the medical side of things, you're going to start to see an increase of doctors in dentistry, regardless of whether they're in or out of network, start to bill medical insurance. And that's because we're seeing trends of medical insurance reimbursing to the tune of 2 times for the same procedure compared to what dental insurance reimburses, right? So that particular dynamic we're studying, and we're kind of observing how medical insurance could possibly help improve things on the dental insurance side of things. And one thing that I'm seeing is, well, if medical insurance is willing to pay double for the same procedure compared to dental insurance, there's obviously a disconnect and misunderstanding between the insurance carriers on either the medical insurance carriers are overpaying or the dental insurance companies are underpaying. It's more of the dental insurance carriers are underpaying based upon the financial dynamics that you can study within any given dental practice, right? You know, where naturally what you've seen, I think Dental Economics did a report and study on this, is that, and this is not to insult the dentist at all, but there have been some clinical changes, right? The more insurance carriers started to grab power away from the dentist and control fees in the wrong direction, you started to see clinical changes such as labs, right? A lot of the prestigious labs that were bought out or no longer in business because their lab units were like $350 to $550 for a unit, right? Where you can't sell that in most communities, because if doctors are in network and they're getting $550 on their crown, they're not making any money, right? So you've seen that dynamic change from, you know, traditional labs, where a lot of online labs have started to surface, and then as well as a lot of technology to improve, you know, the efficiency of delivering a crown with having in-house milling machines, right? So you see these dynamic changes with technology, as well as, you know, what a lot of some of my mentor doctors would say to me, a lot of the higher end labs started to disappear simply because they couldn't compete with the rise of doctors joining in network and what they were selling their lab units for. They can't do it anymore, right? So basic economics there, where, you know, the argument among a lot of the older dentists is that the quality, insurance companies have forced the quality to go down, right, by underpaying or not paying enough for certain procedures. Well, now there's a war to have to balance that out, and I think the future outlook for dentistry as it pertains to dealing with dental insurance, to me, it looks bright. Looks like we'll be okay.
Right. Thank you so much. If someone is interested in learning about all these changes in the insurance and dentistry, what any resources, any suggestions, Ben?
Yeah, so stay tuned to this podcast, as well as you know, we're going to be contributing more articles and reporting our studies in the Dental Economics magazine. So if you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe for free as a dentist if you go to dentaleconomics.com, or check out our website. We are building some more educational tabs to keep the industry updated. So every time we post an article or do something innovative in terms of new information, we will of course report that on this podcast, but as well as some of the other media channels that we contribute towards, including our own website, veritasdentalresources.com. Absolutely. We'll put a link to the veritasdentalresources.com website in the show notes. So definitely go to the podcast episode. You can find that. Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. I really always have fun when I talk to you. You just know so much about this complex landscape of dental insurance and how to work with dental insurance. I also want to take a minute to thank our listeners. We cannot do what we do without you. So if you enjoyed this podcast, of course, share it on social media, share it with your friends, and write a review for us on iTunes or Google Play. Till we meet again next time with another amazing episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast, have a wonderful week ahead.